What's going on, everybody? I'm going to ramble on a little bit today about some of the stuff you're seeing in the assistants, some planned updates and fixes that I have, and just a general update of what's been fixed and what's to come. So before I get into kind of this new stuff, some fixes that you've seen is the appointment booking and free time slot selection has been fixed. There was some roundabout ways I had to do that. High Levels API for getting free slots on different types of calendars was broken for a little bit. I think they've now fixed it, but the solution that I have in place is now pulling things correctly. So I think we'll run with that one until it may or may not cause an issue. It's actually the one that High Level uses to pull their available calendar times in like the permanent links. So I'm sure their full attention will be on that one, which is why I'm going to continue to use that one. Queuing is now in place. The way that works is similar to the old infrastructure with the snapshot, where there was a 30-second wait time before to queue the messages. That's how this one works. So there's a 25 or 20-second wait time now that inbound queues messages. So when you get an inbound message, it's going to wait about 20 seconds to see if there's any second messages that come up. It's going to queue those and kind of do the same thing where it's going to wait again, and then it'll go through and run those queued up inbound messages to get a coherent queuing schedule in place. So no more multiple messages for multiple inbound. There's no duplicate messages for multiple inbound. Now it's someone can send 3 or 4 messages and they're going to get one coherent reply via the queuing. So calendars, queuing is in place. A couple other things that, a couple other bug fixes that I've seen along the way. White label domains now have kind of beefed up the system infrastructure, made a lot of investments into, beefier systems and beefier servers. So now, those things will kind of run more coherently and over the long term be more stable. So you shouldn't see any problems out of those. And I'll continue to beef them up as everyone's deployments continue to grow, which is awesome to see. So some of the stuff that I have in like the immediate term as far as like fixes is, a more coherent support and bug reporting system. Garrett, thank you for the idea. And I agree. There's a better way to do it. So I'll probably, put something in the admin dashboard here, to report, bugs or, to submit a support ticket, and it'll be a ticketed system. So, we'll be able to keep track of it in a more coherent way, as well as you'll be able to keep track of your support tickets and their status rather than going through the school group or texting, which are both very relevant ways. If you need to do so today, please do so. Everyone usually has my personal contact information, so just reach out. I'm a little bit behind from being sick last week, but I'm working my way through that. But there will be a more coherent, more systemized way to kind of handle those things, and I'll have, funny enough, an assistant be able to assist with support inquiries and things like that. Next is going to be follow-up and time zone. I've seen time zone errors with huge time zone discrepancy. So a lot of the Australian clients, a lot of the Dubai clients, anything Middle Eastern or any of that region, Southeast Asia, there seems to be a problem with translating those time zones. So that's something that I plan to have fixed today, or if at least beefed up today, so it's more sustainable, more stable, so I can get a more permanent fix in place. So that's at the top of my list for fixes. The next is going to be follow-up. I have sort of an infrastructure in here for kind of testing, what it looks like and how it'll work. I don't love it, so I will preface that before I go in and show it. But follow up and bringing back the AI voice initial message is going to be kind of part of that as a package deal, almost in like a campaign for the assistant. So those are kind of the things that I have in place. Another one is a change in verbiage in the functions and the prompting for each use case, right? So a lot of people have come with use cases where they don't necessarily have the assistant book the appointment. They may have one where it, sends a link, that link may be a paid link, or, perhaps it's leading to a funnel, or they onboard, things like that. And because the assistant has autonomous thought of scheduling appointments, it knows it has that capability. So it kind of goes into the process of doing so. So I'll have those fixed in more plain language, and also have more of an a la carte autonomous actions menu that you'll see here in a minute. That'll be active hopefully very, very soon, where you can pick and choose the autonomous actions the assistant creates. Another thing a lot of people aren't quite sure what the assistants can do, like sitting in there today. So just to preface it, like the assistants today can manage your calendar fully. So they can conversationally book, they can conversationally reschedule, and they can conversationally cancel appointments. And those are all pretty stable with regards to, I think, rescheduling needs a little work because I have seen intermittent errors. That's on my to-do list as well. But full autonomous calendar management kind of sits native to the assistants today. There's nothing you need to do; they just do it. And on top of that, there's notes. So the assistants will autonomously leave notes in your CRM. And it was funny because I got a call yesterday with a user, and he wasn't aware that they did that. So he went through his appointments that the assistant had booked and got to see all the notes that the assistant left based on the conversation that was, giving relevant information that, it got from the prospect. So that was really cool to see. So yes, the assistant will leave notes based on, their business function. If there's any important information to actually collect on that lead, it'll leave a note. The other thing they can do is autonomously create tasks in the CRM. So if someone, and the verbiage for that, again, it's going to be more generalized, but the verbiage for that as it sits today is any important follow-up task or, important information that comes up during its conversation with a lead or client, it'll create a task in the CRM. So examples, if, a lead tells the assistant, hey, can you have a team member, look at my subscription, or can you have a team member, text me 30 minutes for the appointment, something like that. That's like an action item that comes off of the conversation for whatever use case you have. The assistant will actually create a task in your CRM and assign it to that contact. So that'll be in there too. And again, maybe you hear those things and you go back and you look at some of the stuff and you're like, oh, wow, it did leave some notes. It did leave some tasks. So that's some stuff it'll do. And there'll be more tangible way of tracking those in the dashboard, like appointments perhaps. But I'll have that in there soon. Campaigns, few videos. Another thing that's going to be my primary focus after I get those main fixes that I talked about in the beginning is going to be, a lot more resources, a lot more videos. I have some use cases that I think are very incredible, and the agency owners have been very, very kind and allowed me to show those. So you'll see some videos over some very successful use cases with assistants. I'll have A to Z setup, A to Z external deployment, A to Z internal deployment, whatever it is, videos posted, and those will be on YouTube. Those will also be in the admin dashboard under resources and videos. This sits pretty plainly today. I think there's literally one, and it's an old infrastructure setup, but I'll try to beef all those up and get everyone the resources they need to be very, very successful. Along with those resources will be very popular snapshots that I've seen implemented with the assistants. So things like Rob Bailey's DBR, and perhaps some snapshots that I've collected along the way that I think are very, very powerful to use with the assistant. I will give all those resources for free here under the resources, as well as documents that I've put bounties out for. So information, that the assistants or the general user base can use, such as support documentation for high level, support documentation for this, I'll have built. And you can just download those as PDF and hand them to your assistant, just turnkey under resources. So those are some of the stuff I have planned here. Another thing is, there's assistant snapshots that sit here today, and you may have some, if you're niche down, or some that are built out, depending on how your agency deploys. I'll have a selection here where you can auto deploy those snapshots when a location is created, or, push them in mass. You can already kind of push them in mass, to multiple locations here, but I'll have some that are automated when you open up a sublocation in general. So just a couple updates on like the system in general. I mean, the reliability and, infrastructure has been very, very solid. There's been some hiccups here or there that come from just, systems communicating with each other, and it's high level OpenAI, us, and the different things we have to do to navigate these systems. Since it is so bespoke, there's nothing written down here for, example assistants or API v2 via high level. There's not a lot of documentation on these things, so I'm having to build these basically from scratch. But for the most part, these things have been very, very stable. The use cases have been very, very stable, and seeing there's a lot of agency, a lot of users seeing a lot of success with these things. So if you're having an issue, it usually tends to be a usage issue, but that's entirely my fault for not having enough content, enough guidance for you all to use it. So that's something that's coming there. Okay. Couple things. So let's hop in here. some things you're going to be seeing along the way. These kind of sit inactive. They're kind of idle in here as it sits today, but these will be active over time with the assistants to make them more robust. So settings. When you go into your assistant, you'll see the settings, message queuing time. So this is similar to the last infrastructure, or to kind of explain what happens with queuing is we're kind of waiting for inbound messages, right? Resetting a timer every time an inbound message comes in, so that we're not triple double texting back. We're like a human taking in a bunch of inbound messages and sending one coherent response back to all of them. And there's a fine line with that. Some people prefer a quickness of response rather than queuing reliability, and that's totally fine. My whole thing has always been allowing you to do whatever you want. So here you'll be able to adjust your queuing time. More time obviously is going to be much more reliable of queuing. Anything over 25 seconds is going to be very reliable queuing. Anything under 25 seconds is going to be less reliable queuing. However, your responses will come in faster because that 25-second wait is not going to be as inherent in the process. So you'll be able to adjust that to your liking. Also, reply time frame. This is something I'm working on now. So you'll be able to set when your assistant responds. So either it's going to be ASAP. So as soon as the message is ready to send back, it'll send, right? That's ASAP. Or you can mirror your lead's time. So your lead takes an hour to respond. Your assistant will take an hour to respond. So you'll be able to mirror that just to kind of give some dynamic, response times for your assistant, so you don't have the I'm not busy salesperson, mentality, where it'll kind of mirror that, make it seem more human, more coherent. You can also limit character replies. So if you want shorter replies, or if you just want the ability for it to send as long as it needs to, that'll be here. But you can kind of hard code reply character limits. Okay, these point of contact number, email, and address. So as of today, because it sits native in that location, right? It can see the information associated with the location. However, that may not be the information that the assistant needs to give. For example, the address that you may have in there may be your personal address when you created the location, but it's not your business's address, or your business address has changed, or your number is a bit different than the one on the location. So you'll be able to set the actual point of contact numbers that the assistant needs to reference in these spots right here. And then these three down here are just context. And keep in mind, none of these are necessary. These are just additional settings to refine your assistants. But these are just contextual things, right? Like, why is this conversation happening? This conversation's happening because we're running an ad on Facebook for this, and this, and the person filled out the ad form, and now we're reaching out. Just giving additional context to the assistant. And the same thing with some important information for them to know. Well, I'm in the chiro industry, and we don't say, back pain. We say this instead. Here's some new verbiage training. Here's we're not open on Sundays. So even if our calendar's open on Sundays, just know that we're not open on Sundays. So that's where you'll kind of give it some context, some important information for it to know. And then how in your words should the assistant respond? So, you have the tonality where it's like, casual or whatever, but here we can kind of elaborate on that. So it's like, how should you respond? Well, be very casual in the way you respond, perhaps, keep it short and simple. We keep a very casual language. We have an intimate relationship with our users. So, don't try to, act all salesy, talk to them like you've known them for a million years. Whatever it is, we can kind of elaborate on how we want this thing to respond to our leads and clients. Actions. So this is what I was talking about for the autonomous actions. So the assistant can do the top three natively today. However, there are some use cases where, calendar management may step on its own toes. So what I'm doing here, what I'm opting for, is an a la carte way to select and deploy autonomous actions that the assistant can create based on your use case, right? So the assistant will have access to kind of do all these things you see here and more later on, right? I'll continue to add this as much as I can to it based on what high level is going to allow me to do. But here you'll be able to select what you do and don't want the assistant to do. You may not want it to, do tag management, but you do want it to manage your calendar and create tasks, but you don't want it to mess with, custom fields. So you can a la carte select what you want, unselect what you don't want, and give basically how you'd give an employee access, like in high level, or an employee access in like Google Drive. You pick what you want them to do and what you don't want them to do. You'll be able to do that here with the assistants. Here's what the assistant can do. Here's what you can do. So an a la carte way to kind of select those autonomous actions. campaign. So this does not work today. This is just me trying to get it in where I like it now. Again, I don't love how the follow-up is in here. This is definitely going to change, but this is bringing back the AI voice message. So, we'll have a repository of already recorded voices that you can use, or you can use your own, clone your own voice for the AI voice message, like in the last infrastructure. You'll have the assistant to where it would be able to initiate the conversation now. If you don't have a client acquisition system in place and you just want the bot to go out and kind of do its thing, or the assistant to go out and do its thing, then we can have it initialize the conversation here based on when the tag is added, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then follow up, is the most important thing to like a sales rep, right? Or like even support, right? We want to follow up with those people and make sure their problems got fixed. That's what this is going to be. Again, I don't love how this is set up today, so this is not going to how it's going to look in the future. But basically, what you'll do is you'll be able to train the follow up here. So you'll be able to tell it, "Hey, follow up with this verbiage. This is some verbiage that we use, and be very casual about the way you follow up, and be maybe be funny. Send a joke or something like that. But you'll be able to train it. Almost prompt it here on what you want it to do on follow up. Just tell it what you want it to do. Maybe give it some examples." And that's what this section's for. And again, this is going to change, but it'll be pretty similar in the way that you can set timeframes on follow up, the number of follow ups, and a compounding multiplier. This is kind of the section I don't really love, but excuse me there. But that's kind of how it's going to be. So there's going to be inherent autonomous follow up, right? Along with the self-scheduling action of the assistant here to autonomously schedule themselves, follow up with a lead, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of it here. So another thing I want to hit on in the future that I think is pretty cool that I don't think a lot of people know about is something that I plan for in these deployments. The reason why the deployments are separate, because almost at first it seems unnecessary, right? When you have a very in-depth client acquisition system and you want the tag to be dynamic, for example, I have this tag sprinkled throughout like a 30 workflows, then it makes sense, right? Because I can just change the assistant pretty dynamically there without having to change all of my workflows and the tags associated. So in that way, it makes a ton of sense, right? But in the future, we'll have embeddable iframes and embeddable chat widgets and REST APIs that sit here along with deployments. So you'll have multiple deployments for your assistant to put them sprinkled throughout the internet, wherever you want them, so that they can, kind of all bring in leads to a centralized place with multiple deployments. And what is the iframes going to look like? The iframes are going to look like, if you're part of the old infrastructure, we have an iPhone chat widget that we used personally on our website that I built. And it was a very, very awesome way to prospect because people could try the AI in almost like an iPhone-esque way on the page. So there'd be something like that. Another thing that I'm thinking of is AI-powered forms. So what this is going to be is a way for you to build quizzes, build forms, build surveys, whatever it is, native to Assistant. So what you'll be able to do is grab your inputs and then select an output, right? Like, so there's going to be AI-powered lead magnets, and this does a ton of cool things. So this is really fun because you throw this on your main website, or you throw this on a funnel, whatever it is, and you have a lead magnet, right? So the person's coming in there, they're submitting their information. They get something out of it. They get an AI-powered lead magnet, for example, a fitness routine, a business plan, marketing audit, whatever it is, based on their inputs, generated by AI. Then that information, the information that they've submitted, and that any information associated with that process is given to the assistant as arrows in their quiver, right, to follow up with that person. So it's extremely personalized follow-up at that point. It's a very natural process there of saying, the person comes in, fills out a form, they get something really cool, like a PDF. And then the assistant follows up and is like, "Hey, lead, did you get that PDF? Did you get a chance to read it? I saw, you had this. Are you looking to, perhaps look into more marketing strategy, something like that." So it's a very powerful way to kind of deploy that. Also native chat widgets that you can customize, change the color, maybe even put quizzes in the chat widgets too. And then REST APIs to transfer this thing in between, platforms. So, you have a HubSpot client, Service Titan client, Klaviyo, whatever it is, use the REST API, to bring the deployment back into high level and, send it back out, whatever it is. So hopefully that's super helpful. There's a lot of stuff coming. I'm trying to get to it as much as possible. I'm a little behind on some of the stuff, but A lot of really, really cool stuff coming. And, again, what I think this really does at the end of the day is this is full service helping local business, from a sales perspective, a support perspective, account management perspective, right? And then getting that AI power out there into so many channels, that's native to high level: SMS, Facebook, Instagram, GMB, email, WhatsApp, whatever it is, right? And then we're also putting it out in the internet to capture leads for that person. They may get high visitors, but not a huge conversion rate. We're able to use this AI, to increase their conversion rate or help them with support via chat widget, right? So there's so many opportunities here to help local businesses, which I'm so excited about. There's this persona in my head of this local business owner that I can just, it's kind of the North Star for me, that I think if we can help that person, truly, help them, make them successful in their life, then I think we're all really doing a good service here. So I'm really excited. There's a lot of good stuff coming your way. I hope you all are very, very excited for it and enjoying the process. I know this is a longer video, so I told you I was going to ramble for a little bit, but maybe this gives you some insight into what you're going to see over the next month or so. And then, of course, we have so much stuff planned coming down the pipeline. So very, very excited. Thank you all so much for your time. Happy Tuesday. And I'm very, very excited to continue the growth, continue to see the successful use cases, right? Like, that's been so awesome to see how these assistants have changed so many people's client acquisition system with decreasing workflows, decreasing, manual work. VAs are less needed, to run bigger businesses, right? Because these assistants can handle a lot of that stuff. So I can ramble all day. I'm very, very excited, very, very thankful. So I hope you all have a nice day. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk very, very soon. Thank you.